Welcome back to another video. In this video, I'm going to talk about 5 things that I've gained since I left Jehovah's Witnesses almost 3 years ago. We talk about all the things that we have lost, but on the other hand, we have gained many things. The first thing I want to talk about is time. I have gained a lot of time. My typical week as a Jehovah's Witness was jam-packed. I was an elder for the last 5 years as a witness. I also worked as starting a pre-group, Nepali pre-group, and eventually became a group. So I was the group overseer of about 20 people in the foreign language field. So typically every Sunday night I'd go to work, working third shift, come home Monday morning, and help the wife get the kids ready for service because my wife was a pioneer. Monday night was always personal study, preparing. And then, Tuesday, I'd come home from work, Tuesday morning, prepare for the meeting, and then go to sleep, go to the meeting. Wednesday was always, without a doubt, service. I went out and service probably 45 to 50 times a year on a Wednesday. I took the group out many times on a Wednesday. Sometimes if I was auxiliary pioneering, I'd go out till 3 p.m. on a Wednesday, come home, sleep about 5 hours, and then go to work. So also Wednesday night was our family worship night. Now, one nice thing, when the JW broadcasting came out in 2013, initially I really enjoyed it. I really loved it. But then after a few months, I started to hate it. It was really patronizing, really dumbed down. But one thing I did like about it was the fact that the first Wednesday of every month, we could just watch that JW broadcast, and I didn't have to think. That would be our family worship once a month. Thursdays was then the Nepali meeting in Lancaster. So we drove about 45 minutes, and we had a little book study, Bible study of the Nepali. And I would use Google Translate to transliterate and in English and do the best I could in Nepali. Friday was my day off, really nothing around Jehovah's Witnesses unless I had a shepherding call or the circuit overseer was here. And then Saturday was, again, always service in the morning. I took the group out in service. I was a service overseer the last 2.5 years as an elder. And then in the afternoon on Saturday, we would have our Nepali meeting. And that wasn't every Saturday. It was like either 1 to 3 Saturdays a month we would have a meeting. Watchtower, and we'd watch videos I download videos from the JW.org in Nepali. We'd watch talks with that. So that was my Saturday. And then going back to Sunday, meeting, field service. So every day was wrapped around Watchtower. I spent like 17, 20 hours a week, including all the other stuff, going out giving talks, working on assignment programs. Every year I worked in parking at the district convention, regional convention. And then I worked my way up from working out in parking garages, in charge of garage, then eventually became a desk captain for a quadrant in parking at the International Convention in 2014. 2015, I was in charge of disabled drop-off handicap, so I had to direct traffic through there. That was my assignment. I had to be there at like 6 in the morning until 6 p.m. on regional convention days. And then in 2016, January, I was offered to become the assistant installation overseer. So I was actually working my way up. I accepted an assignment in January of 16. Little did I know that I'd be awake a few weeks later. I did not show up for those meetings, but I still got a couple phone calls. Hey brother, where are you at? So again, my whole life was wrapped around Watchtower. The last 6 years, from 2010 to 2015, we did unassigned territory for a week. We would go to Virginia, Kentucky, West Virginia, upstate New York. We did that for 6 straight years for a week. We had a nice time doing that. That was my vacation. We also did International Convention in 2006 in Germany. So our vacations were always wrapped around Watchtower. So now, since I've left, I have so much more time. Now, I have talked about some of this in my other videos about me exercising more, eating better, helping out the community, but I'm able to volunteer and help people in the area. I've actually been able to donate to Goodwill and United Way and help out through the community. And I actually got to work on a street cleaning project a couple of years ago. I want to do it again, but I've actually got to do some work for the community because I have time now. So that's going to go right into my next thing, what I've gained, number 2, and that is the elephant in the room of the past 4 videos is my immense game collection. Now, even though I have the camera set up in a different area, you can still see we kept some of the beautiful publications just for, not for sentimental reasons, just in case we ever need them. But why do I have so many games? So let me just talk a little bit of story about my history with gaming. I've always loved games. I had an Atari 2600, I had an NES. I had a Sega Genesis, in the 80s and 90s. Well, then in 1998, I bought a Sony PlayStation, and I bought a game called Final Fantasy VII. And I was regular pioneering then and working full time. This is before we had kids. And I was not a ministerial server in 98 yet. I didn't get appointed in 99. So I got laid off. I bought the Final Fantasy VII on a Friday, I think, and I got laid off from my job at Tuesday. They went out of business, went shut down. So even though I went out in service every day that week, I was laid off. I played about 20 hours in that game. Loved it. Just loved the RPG game. Great game. The only problem was the bad guy in that game was Geneva. His name was Geneva, and it almost was Jehovah instead of a J, N instead of an H, and that gave me like pangs and things. So I was playing this game, and then we had an article coming out about role-playing games in 1998 about how we could assume the personality, become demonic, and the traits of that person. I really felt bad about playing this game now. So our circuit overseer came, and I went up to him and talked to him about it. And he recommended that I get rid of my PlayStation and get rid of that game. So I did. I listened to him, threw it away, got rid of the game. So didn't have a game console, didn't have time for games, just was doing Watchtower stuff. And in 2008, I bought a Wii for the kids, and they were kid games. So we played some Mario, Zelda, some other kid games, party games, Wii Sports, and I really enjoyed it. But I had people over my house, and they saw that game console, and they're like, well, that's magic, it's bad. You shouldn't be doing that. So again, I really didn't spend much time with it, and didn't have a console. Well, right before I left, I was waking up, and I'm like, I want to get back into gaming. I can do that. I want to do that. So right before I woke up, I bought a PlayStation 4, and I played a little game I never heard of. I missed 20 years of gaming called Uncharted, and I started playing that, and it just blew me away. Amazing! It's like playing an Indiana Jones game. Just amazing game. And it's funny because looking at my history on PlayStation, I was playing that while I was waking up, and I didn't even realize it. So I was working third shift back then, and I had to work a Saturday night, and I came home at like 6:30 in the morning from work, and I started playing this game. And I just kept playing it. I just lost track of time, and the wife comes downstairs at 10:30, and she goes, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm playing this game. I felt bad. I felt really bad. But remember, my wife was already out. She hadn't been going to a meeting in like over 2 months. She's like, I said, oh, I'm sorry, I missed the meeting. She's like, don't worry about it. It's okay. I just couldn't believe it. It just overwhelmed me. So like that was the 21st of February, that day it happened. And then the 23rd is when I woke up. So just 2 days later. So I missed the Sunday meeting before I woke up. So yeah, that was I left. Now I have so much more time. I have 20 more hours a week. I got we make pretty good money. And I was giving so much money to the Watchtower. We'll talk about that later. So I started buying games. And I'm not a very addictive person, but when I go in, I go all in. So the PlayStation console was like my free therapy. I know it sounds crazy, but I could escape this messed up world that I was in, being shunned, being looked down upon, being talked about, being lied about by my family and my friends, people making stories about why we left, which were all untrue. So it was like a little escapism. It was therapy for me. And I started buying games, and I really enjoyed it. Now, a lot of my games are used. I don't buy all new ones, but you can get them cheap. You can get buy one, get two free, or deals they have at GameStop or other things like that. But yeah, so I did go off a little crazy buying games. But see, if you look at our books here, my wife and I were always collectors of certain things. We have thousands of books. We've been buying books since the 90s, even before I was married. And we every room in our house has bookcases. So it's one great thing that I got to do. I got to experience. I never would have experienced this stuff before. In April of 2016, I played my first mature rated game, and that was amazing. Tomb Raider, great game. I really enjoyed it. Never played a mature rated game before, and played hundreds since then. Maybe not that many. Also, right within that, it was the fact that in February 9 of 2016, when we woke up, we started watching R-rated movie after R-rated movie. I watched a lot of them, never got to see before. So I still have 20, 30 years to catch up with that. So that was my next thing. I got to actually enjoy life and game and do something that I enjoy and passionate about. I love doing it. And I still have its place. I am not totally crazy. I don't miss work. I'm never late. I don't miss bills. But I still love to play games. So what's my third thing? Well, the third thing that I have gained since I left Watchtower is my family. Now, how could you say I gained family? We lost family. Yes, I lost 5 aunts and uncles on my dad's side, 13 cousins on my dad's side. I've lost second cousins on my mom's side, great aunts, great uncles, but yet I've gained family. So in 1968, my uncle, my mom's older brother, was drafted in the Vietnam War. Even though he was baptized, he really didn't believe. And he went and became a soldier. And then he was excelled so much, they sent him to officer school. He became lieutenant. He had a tour duty in Vietnam. And he came back from Vietnam, and it was actually an instructor teaching other soldiers at boot camp. My other uncle got drafted, but he was a little different. He also was baptized as a witness. He went AWOL and moved to Canada. So I have 2 different uncles. They're only a year apart, but they had 2 different experiences during the Vietnam War. So basically, both of them were disfellowshipped, and I had no contact with those uncles my life. But my grandmother, even though she was a good Jehovah's Witness, she never shunned her kids, her 2 sons. My mom had no contact with them, but she did. So in 1982, my one uncle, the one who went to Canada, then he got involved in drugs and drinking. He had shaggy hair, really big beard. And in 1982, he visited my grandma in the summertime, and I saw him for the first time. I was 5 years old. And I could tell this guy was not a Jehovah's Witness, and he had a messed up life. So that's the only time I ever met my uncle Philip. So then, my mom would tell stories. This is what happens when you leave Watchtower. You become an alcoholic. You have a miserable life. And then my other uncle, the one who became an officer, he actually came back to Watchtower in the late 70s, got reinstated, and in the early 80s, I had some contact with him. Then I think about 84, 85, he was disfellowshipped, and I forget what year it was, and he never came back. But the reason why he told me later on he came back was just to have contact with his nieces and nephews and his sister. So again, the only time I ever saw him after he was disfellowshipped in the early 80s was 1989 when my grandmother had surgery. He came to the hospital, and my mom went and talked to him, and she was a jerk to him. And so after my grandma got out of the hospital that year, 89, I was helping her out, stayed at her house for a few days, and she's like, you know what, you should write a letter to your uncles. You should just get to know them. I said, okay, I'll do that. So I was 12, I was baptized, and I wrote a letter, and I typed it up on the computer, printed it out. My mom saw it, read it, ripped it up in pieces, and threw the pieces at my face. Don't you ever have any contact with your brothers, your uncles, my brothers. They're apostates, they're horrible people, screaming at me. I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. So that was it. But little did I know, in 1989, my other uncle who lived in San Francisco got sobered up, stopped drinking, got off some drugs, and met a girl, got married, and a little bit later on had a kid. So I had a cousin I never even knew about. So again, it wasn't the fact that he left Jehovah's Witnesses that he was an alcoholic. It was the fact that he had issues, because I know plenty of Jehovah's Witnesses who are alcoholics. My brother-in-law, who was at Bethel for 27 years, was an alcoholic and still is. And we've had to clean up his throw-up many times. So that's not the issue. The issue was that he just had an issue that he overcame. So little did I know, though, that after I left, we got in contact with both my uncles, and we had a great time. I mean, we just picked up. They're 70 and 71 now, and we just loved every second of them. I met my cousin for the first time this year. Last year, he couldn't meet with us. Great kid, awesome guy. And I got to meet my uncles' wives, my aunts, for the first time. So last year, we all went to North Carolina to visit my one uncle. This year, we all went to Indiana, where my brother lives, to visit again. And then next year, we're planning to all meet in California for a week and have some association and joy. But again, going back to my mom here, I'm sorry I'm jumping around here a lot. So as you can probably tell, I have a little bit of hatred for my mom, but it is what it is. But my mom here, they both told me that when my mom had heart trouble in the early 2000s, that she started contacting her brothers and emailing them. And I'm like, what? How can she do that? How can she rip a paper up in '89 and then like 15 years later say it's okay to email? And at the time, my brother was awake, but my parents didn't know. So I asked Nathan to talk to mom, and then she was defending it. Well, it was just medical reasons. It was no big deal. You know, she tried to justify it, but whatever. She is not a good person. Oh well. So the next reason that I've gained, or the next thing that I've gained, is education. Now, again, I was a really good student. I was excelled in math, excelled in computer science, a little bit of programming, but I went to Vo-Tech to learn how to run a printing press, to go to Bethel, so I never got to go to college. And, you know, I'm 41 now, and I really should go to college, but I just have a great job, and I enjoy what I'm doing, so, but my wife's really wanted to go to college. So, when we had that meeting, if you watched my earlier videos, we had a big fight in Annapolis, Maryland the week after we woke up because I was still bossing her around. In my mind, I was still the spiritual head. And she told me then and there she wanted to go to college, she wanted to get a degree. And I said, okay, you do that. So she's been in college for the last couple of years. She'll graduate hopefully next June, maybe May. And she's going for a degree in healthcare management. So she's improved her life because of education. Now there's some downsides. We'll have a student loan till she's about 60, but it is what it is. But she can make more money and have an easier job than she currently has right now. So we've gained the ability to decide what we want to do with our lives. We've gained the ability that I can go back to school after she graduates if I want to. And I'm planning on it if in the future we're able to do that. My kids can go to any college that they want to go to, as long as we can afford it. But yet that opens so much more possibilities to our lives. We can do things that we couldn't do before. So we've gained the ability to have real education, not a cult education. And the last thing I want to talk about is money. I have gained money as a Jehovah's Witness. Now again, I was not a perfect Jehovah's Witness. Don't get me wrong. One thing I always did, and I learned it from my dad, and it's a little bit of his fault, but it's more my fault. But he told me as a teenager, go get a credit card, charge things up. It's okay to have, you need a credit card. Don't worry, Armageddon's coming. So as a teenager, he put in my mind that debt wasn't that bad. So I got into debt from credit cards. And a lot of it was for Watchtower stuff, you know, conventions, unassigned territory, suits, shoes. That's all expensive stuff, especially if you're an elder or ministerial servant giving talks out. Suits are not cheap. And unless you have a really normal body shape, you can get cheap suits, but I would always get tailored suits to fit me. They were very expensive. And plus with my weight gain and loss over the years, you know, I couldn't wear suits, then that would be too big for me. Then I would get rid of the big suits, then later on gain weight back, and then I don't have anything that fits. So that was very expensive. And we had a circuit officer who gave us a talk once telling us that a 401k is a satanic illusion. Yes, it's demonic, it's not real. So don't save for retirement. So for years, I didn't save a penny. And then in 2002, when my son was born, like, you know what, I'm going to start saving for 401k. But I didn't tell anybody because, you know, I didn't want to get in trouble. And I was only putting 2% of my pay into my 401k. And that's what I kept it at. And it grew, you know, I had a little bit of money, nothing major. And then in 2016, I upped it to 5%. And now I'm giving 11% of my pay. So every year I've been going up a little bit more. So I can actually save for retirement. Because when most witnesses retire, the first thing they think about is, ooh, I can do more for Watchtower. I can pioneer now. I can give more. But no, you don't have to do that. You can actually give back to the community, help other people, and also help yourselves. So that's what our plan is. Our plan is to retire, hopefully in 25 years from now, and I want to start a foundation up and help troubled Jehovah's Witness teenage kids. I could imagine me waking up at 17 and no place to go. So that's what our future goal is. That's our goal, to gain that ability to do that. Help troubled any kid who is in a restrictive cult or religion. Help them get a place to stay, or get a job. Help maybe get their birth certificate, their social security card. That way they can actually establish themselves in the society without the help of their parents. And it's a very tricky gray area. You can get in trouble for helping certain kids, but that's why I want to do a foundation in the future. So that's my passion project, that's where I want to go in the future. Help as many people as possible. Now, if they're from Hasidic Jews, maybe, if they're Mormons, if they're Scientologists, if they're Amish or Mennonite, it doesn't matter. I want to help troubled kids if they wake up and realize that they are trapped in a high control group. So that's my future plans for in the future. But I've gained that ability to I have the say in my life, because every year when income tax check would come, I would give $300 to $500 to my sister. She was at Bethel for 20 years. My aunt and uncle were missionaries in Kenya. Every year they came back to visit, every 3 years, I would give them hundreds of dollars. I helped pay for their plane tickets to fly back. Every single meeting, I would give 20, 30 bucks, every donation, every meeting. All that money that I gave is wasted. I can't cry about it. I cannot worry about it. But now all the money that I have now, it took us 2.5 years to really get out of debt. We're almost out of debt, just a few more months. Then I can start paying it forward and helping other people. And I cannot wait. So those are just 5 things that I gained since I left Watchtower. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. And I'll try to have more content in the future. I'm going to do a few videos about Bethel and also about my tales as an elder. So I want to wish everyone a happy and Merry Christmas and a great New Year's. Thank you again, and have a great day.